Imagine, economics is everywhere. Why? Because money is everywhere, right? So in economics, what we teach is what is money, what its functions, why we save and invest money, why, for example, what's going on nowadays with the United States and Iran, how this affect our market in Cyprus, how digital currencies affect what's going on in our domestic markets or in global markets in general. Economics is a way of thinking. Actually, in our program at the University of Limassol, we give this ability and opportunity to the next generation to combine economics with other fields such as finance, business, digital technologies, investment, accounting, and so on. It has to do with how we make decisions, how people behave, and how we can avoid to have any recessions, any crisis. If we have recession nowadays, if we have crisis, how we solve this problem. If we all think in a way like an economist, we could solve any problems, not only political problems, but even problems that has to do with our family investments, our consumption, our savings, and so on.
Welcome to Bright Minds at UoL, where we explore ideas that shape our world. Today's conversation dives into something that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not, the economy. But not just numbers and policies, we're talking about expectations, behavior, uncertainty, and how rapidly changing forces like digitalization are transforming the way economies function. I'm joined by Dr. Snezana Eminidou, Assistant Professor of Economics and Econometrics, Vice Chair of the Department of Economics and Finance, Director of the BSc in Economics and Co-Director of the MSc in Real Estate at the University of Limassol. Dr. Eminidou, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Let's start with the basic question. What is economics?
So, yes, economics actually is a social science that teaches how individuals, businesses, and governments interact and allocate the scarce resources to satisfy their limited needs. What I mean with that? Each of us have limited resources, for example, regarding our money, salaries, time that we have, natural resources that we have. So this is a big problem, and that's why economics is an essential science who want to solve this problem in order to satisfy our unlimited needs. We always need something as humans, right? But our resources are limited. So how we solve this problem? Economics is here to solve this problem. This has to do with each of us. And I believe it's very important, especially nowadays when everything changes in very high speeds, very rapidly. So we have to make sure that we understand how things work.
Everything sounds extremely complicated. I'm not sure if it's true or if that's how I realize economics. But what originally drew you to such an interesting and complex field?
Actually, I would not say it is complex. Actually, it's very, very simple thing. Imagine, economics is everywhere. Why? Because money is everywhere, right? In our daily transactions. So in economics, what we teach is what is money, what its functions, why we save and invest money, why, for example, what's going on nowadays with the United States and Iran, how this affect our market in Cyprus, how digital currencies affect what's going on in our domestic markets or in global markets in general. In any case, economics is not something theoretical that needs a lot of theories, a lot of maths and calculations. No, economics is a way of thinking. We have to think in an economic way in order to make a correct decisions.
So if we go straight to academia then, and the next generation, what skills does a modern economist need today that were not essential 10 years ago, or even, let's say, a few years ago or 10 months ago, if this is a field that changes so rapidly?
Yes, it's a field that also has to change. Actually, it changes in the same speed as other fields, and it's embraced nowadays the business, the technology, digital technology, and stuff like that. Actually, in our program at the University of Limassol, we give this ability and opportunity to the next generation to combine economics with other fields such as finance, business, digital technologies, investment, accounting, and so on. So economics is not alone anymore. We teach economics in combination with other fields. It's interdisciplinary program. It has to be interdisciplinary, and it has developed and it's developing as anything else nowadays.
So you would say that this is the biggest misconception about being an economist, that economy or economics is just about numbers, or is something completely different nowadays?
Nowadays it's completely different. It has not to do actually with numbers. It has to do with how we make decisions, how people behave, and how we can avoid to have any recessions, any crisis. If we have recession nowadays, if we have crisis, how we solve this problem. So I'm not sure the young generation are aware of that. They think that economics, okay, I have to do maths, I have to do, it's too boring, who cares? I will say, actually, economics is something that I love, and is a way that I'm thinking and behave in general. And I think it's very important to be able to think like an economist. If we all think in a way like an economist, we could solve any problems, not only political problems, but even problems that has to do with our family investments, our consumption, our savings, and so on.
So let's talk about a specific example then. We are living through a period of constant economic disruption, rising inflation, interest rate shifts, geopolitical tensions that you already mentioned. In your view, for example, what is the biggest challenge central banks are facing today?
The biggest challenge not only central bankers, but all of us are facing is uncertainty. We live in a period of high uncertainty. Everything moves very fast, very rapidly. So what we have to do as economists, we have to predict, we have to make forecasting to prevent these recessions that could happen if we don't take any action. So what we are doing, we are taking data, we are collecting data, we are making research in order to get some data from the individuals, from the businesses, what they believe, how they will behave if this happens, how they will react to these shocks, to these changes, for example, economic changes, in order to prevent to have any kind of crisis.
So what you are suggesting is that economy is actually and truly predictable. Can we truly anticipate how people and markets will react?
Yes, if we do it correctly, we can do that.
So if we want to move one step forward and connect this to your research interests, I understand that your research focuses on expectations, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. So how dangerous then can it be when people's expectations don't align with economic policy?
You're right. First of all, it is dangerous if people expectations or business firm expectations do not align with the policy. Actually, one of the papers that I have published is actually related with your question. We examine, for example, if we have decrease in interest rate, this means that individuals believe that central bank, that policymakers want to push them to increase their consumption and to increase the GDP of the country. So in this case, decrease in interest rate increase our consumption, and increase the economic growth of the country. On the other hand, some of them could interpret the decrease in interest rate that actually central banks is worried about future recession, for example. In that case, individuals will behave in a different way, in an opposite way that you said. Sometimes they don't move on the same direction that policymakers want. In that case, they will decrease their consumption and spending even more. And this will lead in even more decrease of GDP and to have a deep recession.
So the picture that I get as someone that has no background with economics is that policymakers actually need to be way ahead and not just predict but act as soon as something or a behavior goes a different way, for example, to be alert so that they move on and they make a shift on their policies, for example. Is this...
Yeah, exactly. This is actually what we are doing in research in economics. We are collecting data, we are working with actual data, we are collecting expectations regarding the individuals, households, businesses, and this information that we give to the policymakers is an information that they can use in order to shape good policies and to have economic growth, high standards of living, and so on.
And in all this then, how is digitalization changing the way economic agents behave? Because digitalization makes everything even faster. The changes are even more extreme, one could say.
Yes, actually, digitalization is in our life. We cannot change it. In economics, we are using these tools that technology gives us. We use AI and all the related stuff in order to make us much better and correct forecasting and prediction as possible. This is a tool that we actually use to make our research even more efficient.
So you believe that technology is making markets more efficient and not more unstable?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. And what would you say that is one major risk of digital economy that we're not talking about enough?
One of the major maybe risks is to ignore the impact that digitalization can have on the environment. We completely ignore the sustainability, the environment that we are living nowadays, and just follow the growth, the technology growth. We have to keep in mind the consumption of the energy and these scarce resources that I mentioned earlier that we have. We have these take this into account, the sustainability issues, the impact of any technological growth to the environment nowadays.
So if you could change one thing about how the global economy or economic system works, what would that be? Would it be toward this direction?
Yes, of course. We cannot ignore this. We have to take into account the digitalization. And also we have to keep in mind that we have take into account what people believe, what businesses are doing, and what are their strategies. We're doing policymakers have to take into account these dimensions as well to make proper decisions, proper plans for the future.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the economic future?
Actually, I'm optimistic. In general, I'm a very optimistic person. And regarding the economics, this is something that I love. It's in my heart. And this is also something that motivates me to do even more research in order to solve any kind of problems that humanity can have in the future.
If I would ask you to add whatever you want in this short conversation we had, in order, to speak directly to students, to encourage them to follow this field? What would that be?
I will say that, first of all, they have to do and they have to study something that they love to and they like to do. They don't have to study something without any interest. If you love something and you have interest on it, you can achieve many things in your life. For example, my academic journey started at University of Cyprus. I did my PhD, my bachelor and master degree in Department of Economics at University of Cyprus. And studying economics, I realized that this is actually very interesting. It's not boring at all. And this motivated me and made me to follow and study this field in more depth in my master degree in economic analysis. University of Cyprus gave me a lot of opportunities, a lot of skills and experience that I gained from there. The high standards of the university and the culture, the spirit. I'm motivated from that, and I want to bring this spirit and value to my second academic home, which is University of Limassol. I want to bring this and to say that our goal is not only to provide knowledge to our students, but also to give them opportunities and skills that they need in order to shine, in order to use their capabilities in the future. It's not only about the knowledge. It's everything has to do with the culture of the university. And I think it's very important. Before you decide what you want to study, you have to make sure, I really like it. Is the environment good enough? What are the prospective benefits that I can gain from that?
Just a practical question before we conclude with our conversation. Are the courses taught in English or Greek?
Courses at University of Limassol, actually we are providing both Greek and English, distance learning or face-to-face. Regarding the program of BSc in Economics, our programs are in English. They're face-to-face in Limassol, so the best city in the Cyprus, if not in the region. Yes, our courses are in English, and we have international students who really like what they are studying right now.
Dr. Eminidou, thank you very much for such an insightful and thought-provoking conversation. What stands out is that the economy is not just about policies or numbers. It's about people, expectations, and constant adaptation in an increasingly complex world. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, viewers, for watching this. Until next time, stay curious.